Hello everyone and welcome back to another Wano video, this time around with the Landjut Patch Preview, which comes with the Landjut DLC. As we will get a couple new units, we will get a big rework of the artillery with this one. That is the one where we are going to start the artillery works first iteration, hitting the line, as we don't have artillery leaders and yet, and a couple of other things are still for sure still work in progress. We will have to figure all of this out, but with this, what is going to be in, we will have a look on right at the beginning here, and then afterwards go through the classic balance changes and other stats changes that were made with this. So let's start with the artillery work and a bit of a deeper look into that. So when we look at the artillery, we can now see the different ranges now being more standardized. Mortar, for example, at 35. Mortars now have clean ranges as well, so cleanup of ranges has now reached artillery as well. And here you can see the setup timer being shown, and when you try to load them back in, there is a timer as well. We go normal time, here you go, this is it in real time, and then so it takes a good while here for mortars with their 10-second setup timer, and you can still load them in quickly, so that is kind of the way around it currently. Yeah, if you set them up, let them fire, then move them. So yeah, setup now has arrived. Oh, will fire with their new arcs. Fly a good bit faster. The damage is improved as well with trivial check in the middle, and then you move them away and see that takes a good while. Currently, with loading, if you haven't fired yet, that still is fast, but once you fired, yeah, you have to wait for a long time, and you can move. So Malka here, for example, already set up, still a deadly unit. For example, shoot at this T-55 without accurate shot, and should see damage output. So pretty great. We're waiting for the aim time. So, yeah, with the new arc, they fly pretty high, they still deal a lot of damage, and afterwards, even when you speed up the time, it takes a good while for them to move. 52mm howitzers, if we have a look at their impact on tanks here now, they are still doing good damage as well. So let's do it with one for now. Have a look at what that one can do. Setting up is indicated there as well. That one now, as you can see, does a bit more AoE. Like even when they land a bit short, the AoE is greatly improved. But the damage itself, yeah, pretty decent. And then if we now fire with this one, with the 30mm here with the artillery, you can see that this will deal solid damage now as well, and has a bit more AoE than before. You don't need direct hits anymore to deal damage, but get a direct hit damage slightly reduced for artillery for the most part. If we have a look at mortars and see what they can do against armor, their damage is still pretty significant as well. Or is now more significant also. Especially the AoE is now something that is existing. Before it was basically only direct hits, and as you can see, even slightly next to the unit they do damage. But as you can see, it's still not perfect against armor. If we have a look at what they can do, they fire in the field of KDA Schützen, and we maybe get some more units out here. Once we do this, you can see that they deal a good bit more damage than they did before. So mortars as an aggressive weapon will be more interesting. But on the other hand, you also will be hunted more with them because it's easier to counter-battery them. Yeah, if we have a look at what the 30mm does to infantry, fire into a formation here. We can check this out. As you can see, yeah, the angle is way more visible. And yeah, it's significantly improved as well. Especially also in the predictability, how much damage it does in an area because of the buff to the AoE. But the Molka is still the best at dealing damage here. So that one still does significant damage to the enemy. Killing off the enemy, the infantry unit here quite quickly, as you can see. So in the end, that is still top. We will have a look at MLRs here in a second as well. When we look at these, they also have the setup time. They also have a different, like, 5-kilometer range stat, basically, as well. There are a couple of smaller steps as well, but yeah, goes all the way up to 50 kilometers for the Smerch. There has been a change to big rockets, like the Smerch or rocket that we have here at the PM24, that they now fire in fast intervals. They have the setup and the backup time as well, so it'll take a while for them to set up, but once they're set up, they now fire a bit faster. Instead of 2 seconds between shots, they have 1.5 seconds between shots, so they land faster on the target, plus their curve has been changed as well. So yeah, BM24, for example, now a bit more consistent with getting the damage on target in time, before the enemy can move away. I still believe for the BM24 itself, it won't be amazing. For the Smerch, I believe it will be quite impactful. We have a look here. I would try to move out these tanks once the shots start landing. We'll try to move them forward. See how that goes. See if you react immediately as they fire, that's something different, but like once the first shot lands, let's try moving them and see how this goes. There's TADUs and 62s, and as you can see, yeah, the shots landing faster mean that you have a significant less time to react between the first couple of rockets. You still will get away. So in the end, you still get out here, but that's still a significant buff to the big rocket launchers. And then Napalm now has been changed significantly in the way it deals damage to vehicles. It does deal great damage to light vehicles and decent damage to medium vehicles. Okay, we're gonna shoot the Napalm launcher on this here, and really little damage to the heaviest of tanks. So let's have a look on how that plays out. Damage calculations there now mean that Napalm is not a heavy tank deleting machine anymore, but extra effective against lighter stuff like infantry. But everybody is trying to get away there. As you can see, the TADU didn't take much damage. Infantry is still dying quite quickly. T62 is still doing significant damage. T54 is still being picked apart. But yeah, the TADU, it will still die. It still does take damage over time, but you can't drive a TADUD out. So the weird way where Napalm was it's countering heavy stuff, but it's actually not that effective against lighter, faster vehicles. Is now changed because it deals a bit more damage against light vehicles, whilst it deals infantry, whilst it deals significantly less damage against TADUDs. So that you can save your heavy tanks when they get shot by napalm or bombed by napalm. But napalm still does kill infantry. With napalm also destroying towns quite quickly, it's really good against those mechanized blobs. Or or motorized blobs with infantry close to towns. Can destroy the cover there as well. So that's going to be an interesting one as well. So yeah, with that, let's have a look on how the counter battery one does work. And the way the radar works, the radar works is basically just like is explained. As soon as something starts firing, see it in this big as radius, and you immediately identify it, immediately see what kind of unit it is. Goes for all kind of units, mortars and all. As soon as they stop firing, they disappear again, relatively shortly after. So you still see them, yeah, shortly after they fired, and then after a couple of seconds, you lose contact. So that's it for that radar. And the unit that have these are the Green Archers that we already know, that we have with the British in HDR, with the Dutch in CLKA, with the new Danish Easke division, and with the Germans in 6th, 11th Armored Cavalry, and then TKS. And then we have a new French EAB variant, the Ratak, with Durine. The really cute one, the fastest one of the bunch, so the best one of the bunch, I would argue as well. Then we have the Snark 10 for the Polish in 15th, Soviets in 157th, and in Berliner Gruppierung for the Czechoslovaks in 303rd, and for the East Germans in KDA. So some of the weaker reservist divisions gaining these kind of units, so the mechanic that also gets retroactively added to a lot of base game and older divisions as well. So nice bit and really well put into place there. And yeah, another thing with artillery, the packing into transports also now has been made less clunky, so units load better into transport. Bug there has been fixed as well. And yeah, that brings us in general to the changes that we have in this. And one of the biggest changes is that zero VAT now might be more worthwhile, because before, stress recovery here was 0.6 per second. Now it's going up to 0.75, so 25% faster recovery. It's still a lot slower than at 1 VAT, so this is only a small buff. The 0 VAT level gives you still 25% faster stress recovery, so on 0 VAT it is a significant boost, but compared to veterancy levels higher than it, it's still quite a lot slower, like still less than half of the recovery speed. That's also taking more stress, because you take 14% less stress here compared to the 0 VAT, so kind of means that you're still like only 1/3 of the stress basically at the recovery here compared to trained level. So 0 VAT is still a significant punishment compared to 1 VAT, but it's less so than before, which is a good way thing. We might see if this is enough to push more people playing actually with 0 VAT and using VAT levels a bit more than just 1 VATing everything, which currently is kind of the meta. Basically 1 VAT everything that you can, and 2 VAT a couple of units, and then 0 VAT only units that are forced to come with that. It's a nice buff to a lot of reservist divisions as well, which currently are not the best, so that is nice. Another thing that changed is the shock trait, which we have obviously on all the engineers. That now has a range of 350 again, so it impacts, like the impact here of this unit dealing more damage and attacking faster is significantly earlier triggered with 350, meaning that in forest fights and also in fights between buildings, it gets activated a lot more often. Before it was 150-meter range, which kind of means you had to be on top of the enemy, usually in the same building or the building really close to them. On forest fights, you had to run on top of them, get the shock trait. Now shock trait is activated earlier, making engineers a significant bit better, and also all the special forces that have shock trait. So shock trait is for sure a lot more relevant in infantry fights again, and might make infantry fights a bit faster again. Really make infantry with shock trade significant, more important part of the combat experience again. And then the last thing is the jammer trait. That now affects units with exceptional optics and GSR only, and is not and in the correct manner and all. So all kind of interactions between these units and enemy recon units have been cleaned up. So GSR is jammed on the whole range, and exceptional optics ground vehicles are used to one level as well, and everything else is staying at the same level, and all of them are jammed. There were a couple of weird little bugs with this before, so that is nice to be seen as well. Napalm effects also, other effects like smokes and explosions in 10v10 are now more visible and no longer disappear after the first effect, so those weird glitches in 10v10s that have been improved as well. And the diving aircraft also now drop all their bombs, and there are no more weird angles there. Like, planes dive in a bit of a steeper angle now, so that they actually do hit their stuff as well. Next to the artillery, there is a nice little fix there as well, and the C-11 plane that had with the Spanish that was somehow shown as an air-to-air plane, shown correctly as a support plane that it is. So nice little fix there. And then one more change is that the guns of aircraft also have been a bit of a change, as a lot of cannons got nerfed in their performance by their reload time increase. 0.3 instead of 0.25 seconds. So that's a significant 20% increase in time, and that's basically just a 20% nerf their output. Some have not been changed though. Like, for example, the Gao gun here, the 25mm, or the Gao 8 30mm are still at 0.25, and same goes for example, the Arden Sefa, they are still at 0.25. Look at an F-18. The Vulcans now, for example, are at 0.3, and same goes for others. But yeah, 30mm here, still some at 0.25, some at 0.3. A lot of the fighter ones now at 0.3, so they don't kill helicopters, especially as reliable gun strafing anymore. This is a weird one. Still not quite sure why there are so much differences between them. But yeah, it means that helicopters have a bit of a better time, and I'm all for that, because I believe helicopters had a pretty insanely rough time. Not from the GS-23L, that was already pretty shitty before, and now it's worse. But helicopters had a pretty bad time before. And as we changed that planes get their accuracy back when they get stressed out, the gun run on enemy planes is not as important anymore. Like, that you have immediate damage output there. The longer reload time does not matter as much is okay in air-to-air fights. Like, mainly an anti-helicopter thing, so buffing helicopter survivability a bit there. Nice. I just don't quite get why the rollout is so inconsistent. And one more bigger rollout across the board is the instructor trait. That one now has been advanced from only the Green Berets and the Chieftain Mark 1 Force, which can't come at 0 vet anymore. So that too also being included with an AML 90 instructor in the 152nd, Masserine instructor. So French get the first division that has double instructor in the 152nd. And then we also have Lair T-72s in Brugner, and Lair or instructor T-72s in 303rd. So that one will be interesting. One in 303rd, currently a bit hampered, if we have a look there quite quickly, because it can't buff the SD-100, because currently the SD-100 is still counted as an anti-tank unit. So it currently can kinda only fix the T-34, T-5 and buff up the T-54. But the SD-100, which is the key unit here, not get buffed by the instructor. So yeah, hopefully that gets changed and this gets become an MBT basically. Just as well an MBT as it is an anti-tank unit. And then this unit actually would profit from this, and this division's instructor T-72s could really go to town inside of a big SD-100 club. But yeah, currently that is a bit of an issue here for that division with that new mechanic change basically. Yeah, that basically brings us now the bigger balance changes. We'll really see how the artillery will go across the board. Instructor units also now don't buff each other anymore. Can't just have 3 instructors giving them each other maximum level veterancy. So that kind of instructor blob gameplay is not possible either. But yeah, it will be interesting to see how it goes. We will now get into the NATO buffs and start over there. And we start for NATO in the logistics app. We will go through to the app. We start with change to an MR13, not the only MR13. We'll get this buff. That is that the German one here gets the smoke that it deserves. We have the smoke launcher here in front. So little buff there. German supply MR13. Big win for our classic suffering second Panzer idea again. Yeah, we have a lot of supply vehicles changing their hit points 6 or to 8, sometimes buff or sometimes nerf. MLV went up from 5 to 8, for example. The M35 went up from 5 to 8. The Landjut 6x6 went up from 5 to 8. And on the other hand, Rover going up to the 101 Fs. I believe that's an actually country transport. Yeah, this one went up to 6 hit points, so like arc hit points in the transport and in the logistics, they went up and some went down. Like, for example, the 3RM 1000, for example, had 10 hit points, that one went down to 8. Bit of a cleaning house. Militant to 8, Stolly decreased from 10 to 8, Bedford went up from 5 to 8, Bedford, Big Bedford, TM 10 to 8 down. Yeah, Hammett went down from 10 to 8, and so on. Like a lot of those have changed. When we come to the infantry, start with another MR13. Well, I guess it's going up here. The MR13 A3 does now have smoke, which the Dragon one does not get, but MR13 A3 went up to 25 points, that now does bring smoke. It's a nice capability to have, and also nice differentiation in the different MR13s that you get in the American deck. I believe that's a nice buff to divisions like 11th ACAF, where you want to have more smoke launchers around. And in Gruppierung, I believe there it's rather a bit of a nerf, because there you were more in for it for the 50 cal. Is more expensive, so that's an interesting one. When we stay in the infantry tab, another change that is actually across the board is that recoilless rifles now, they have 3 hit points on their crews. And that is going to be interesting. See how that plays out, how recoilless rifles, the M40s, the Wombats, so on, with 3 hit points, there's a 50% hit point buff, now will play out, where they can duel light vehicles and so on a bit better, and also infantry a bit better, are just a bit more efficient fire support. With the changes to mid-level artillery, which I believe makes mid-level artillery a lot scarier for fire team, because with AoE they want to kill them quite quickly now. I believe it still does leave them in the mediocre role, but yeah, with the artillery changes, we will have to all see how it all plays out. Then we have a lot of leaders that got buffed. For example, the command Pioneers come now at 3 base availability. Pioneer leader. Canadians come at 3 base availability as well, like some smaller leader team. Salvador's Mando 1 comes at 3 base availability, like just some normal basic leaders without any big versatility. They come at 3 per card, so yeah, especially here with the British one, I believe that's quite an interesting leader now for especially 4th and maybe Berlin command as well if you want the 3 there. The Gendarme Mobile one in Rhine comes at 3 as well. A little buff too. The Aeromobile one that get in TKS and 11 comes at availability too. So interesting little changes there. With it buffs to some infantry divisions mainly, where you can take those pioneer leaders quite easily. And that the recoilless rifle one is going to be the most impactful one here in the step. And we move on to the Arty, where we start with MOR-10s getting vet locked for the most part. The only one that still comes at 1 vet is the US Marine Corps one. So that is a significant nerf to MOR-10s. And MOR-10s are currently the dominant artillery piece, so it absolutely makes sense to bring them down to 0 vet. And now you have to bring in veteran, the leader unit with them. You really want to use them. Want to get the better aim time, which is a significant impactful change, and the reload time, which goes magnificently down by 17 seconds. There, like 81-second reload time is harsh. So yeah, MR10s, their counterparts on the other side, their aim time, reload time and aim time, basically heavily nerfed. So that is going to be interesting. And we have a couple of other artillery pieces also having their reload time changed. One that now has 62-second reload time goes for 8 or 5mm at 62 instead of 53-second reload time. The CLJP one, same. This one here, basically base same stat, but with veterancy, I believe. Yeah, exactly. The US Marine Corps one gets the free vet there. Keeps it on its artillery as well. But yeah, the MR10 but nerf, like this is going to be interesting. Because currently MR10 divisions, especially on some maps, tournament play are just such a selling factor, so not having them there anymore. And yeah, the Feldhaubitze being a similar piece here, and going up to 62 seconds as well. So, especially second Panzer Grenadier here with the double nerf, with the big gun and the smaller gun of theirs. It's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out next to all the other artillery changes as well. Then we have the Auto 5mm, this small one here into Rhine. This one has 4 base availability now. Also, it's 3 main gun now. No, nothing changed here. Oh no, wait, was it 42 seconds? It says something of 42 second here now, but it's still at 49, so I believe nothing really changed there. A couple of mortar vehicles are going to be lighter to kill for PM81, like this had 2 side armor before. Then goes for the 125 one. They had 2 side armor before. They only have 1. They are going to be easier to kill with counter battery fire. This brings us tank tab. Here we start with the AML-90, which does not exist as a purely AML-90 anymore. Now instead kind of split into 2. That is the AML-90 Reserve and Instructor. Instructor taking a slot of one of the leader AML-90s in Mod 7. We already talked about how they have now 2 Instructor units. at 1/52nd now, having one new instructor unit, Masserine instructor here, can help out, especially with the reservist at 6 base availability. LRCS, I want to keep them behind, but reservist flops with this division now could become real scary. And I like, especially considering that we soon have another French division that kind of goes into a similar spot, this division, but with heavy tanks, giving them the instructor kind of thing to have them be more unique, and the instructor division now is a cool little role. Good usage of that trait. Obviously, 2-3 more units. I don't want to have that trait in every division, but I believe there are a couple more that could use it in a nice role. I mean, we for sure will have them with Nemesis 8, so that's gonna be interesting. ML90 here. Yeah, 10 base availability on Eurovet 1. Down to 7, but still good availability here. The instructor. This one now is also 5 points cheaper than the original AML90, but having reservist trait. So you combine them with the instructor one. You can save money actually if you use them in plops. That's kind of how you want to use them now, so I'll be interested to see how this all plays out with instructor. Quite excited. 152nd play, but I believe the infantry one with the reservists is actually the more impactful part of this whole storyline, especially with reservists on the baseline already now being better, with zero vet getting the better stress recovery. Still impactful buff to all those kind of divisions when they are on their units are on their own. Another unit that got buffed is the Centurion. Those are the Centurions Mark 13 and Mark 5. They get a 5% accuracy buff, and the Mark 13 also gets a 50 cal, which I believe is somewhere modeled over here. Yeah, this is where the gun goes. Like, this is another 50 cal fireport, so Centurion Mark 13 now decent bit more HE firepower, and the buff of 5% machine gun accuracy when both moving or when standing still. A nice little buff as well. They got nerfed in price lately. Kind of pushed them out of their really good comfort zone. With the 5% accuracy buff, they mostly get compensated for that now again, so they are now in a good spot again, I believe. Yeah, both of these tanks, quite nice. Yeah, you still want to use this one with the leaders to take away, or the instructor, rather, chieftain, to take away the reservist trait, and then you can really push around these guys quite nicely. Another unit that got buffed that is British, the Scorpion. That's not only British. British, it's a recon. Also is an PLK and MNet with the whole Scorpion. This one now has a shorter reload time. You look here. In 6.5 seconds instead of 7.5 seconds. Basically means it went from 8 to 10 rounds per minute. That is a significant buff, especially of the Scorpions pre-vet in the MNet one, which are also cheaper. I'm kind of scared of these when these show up in big numbers, just stun things down. Like, this is a nice little buff, and MNet already is a scary division. I believe the Scorpion was already a decently cost-efficient unit considering their range. This weapon for now, this is actually quite something. Yep, then we have Leopard 1 family getting some nerfs, rather the Leopard ones with longer ranges, starting with 1B, the Dutch one, LKA. One went from 100 to 10. The T1, Canadian one, got 5 points, and 215. The 1A5s, both the Belgian and the German one, got from 115 to 125 points. One having more penetration, one having one more armor here. German one with more armor, the Belgian one more penetration, going up to 125. The one BE, the one with more penetration and both accuracy as well, that one is now at 110 points. So yeah, the especially bigger nerf to the Panzer division, 16th. also nerf to the Germans and Canadians there in the infantry tab. The Canadians will get compensated. Oh yeah, that's something that I forgot in the infantry tab. They have a new unit in the infantry tab actually. That is the Pioneer Carl Gustav. Because they now have an HE Carl Gustav team with 9 hit points. The HE Carl Gustav, which has them very warhead, so really good in town fights. With the 850 range, really solid as fire support in general. Yeah, really solid unit. The HE output is quite good. So that is a nice little change there as well. A nice little buff to this unit. So those are the changes there. And then the last change in the tank tab, that the Heimat Kanonenjagdpanzer got named Heimat Kanonenjagdpanzer instead of just being the Kanonenjagdpanzer. Does not want to show up on Canada. Yeah, now we have the Heimat Kanonenjagdpanzer. Also, recon tab. Start with the AMX 30. EM 1 getting nerfed. Oh, down. To one, or going up to 105 points rather. 5 point here instead of the previous 95 points. 10 point nerf there. Then we also have the change to the Rasura in Spanish deck. That one now goes fast off-road. All Santanas do. The recoilless rifle one goes now fast off-road as well. The last unit that got changed, the Rover Human, got its weapons now mounted correctly, which can use its smoke correctly, which went down from 30 to 25 points. HDR London there with a nice little victory. Yeah, nice little with here with the L-37s moving around, fire correctly, and being able to smoke off nicely. So, looking forward to that. In the AA tab for NATO, we don't have many changes. Or we have one. That is the VLRA 20mm with forward deployment going down to 40 points, which is an important buff, as it was at the stupidly high 55 points before. That was way higher than any other 20mm cannon, and it's a key part of the opener both for 11V and especially TKS, because for TKS the only forward deploy AA you get, so saving 30 points or so on the 2, or maybe 45 points on the 3 that you open up with TKS is going to be a massive buff to that division. In 11V they are pretty important as well, so nice little buff to both of those divisions. Then in the helicopter tab for NATO we also own one change. The Soldado getting better base availability, up from 4 to 6. So Guzman getting a nice little buff there. Little helicopter. And then in the aircraft tab, a couple more changes. Start there with the Intruder, Napalm 1, going down from 230 to 200 points. With the changes to Napalm now being better against light vehicle but worse against heavy tanks. I mean, cheaper. Maybe there's a role now. See? Mirage 1000, the RDI, up to 215 points. One that we have in Royal Commando Süd, 6, 7V, buffed fast, so yeah. This one getting changed. We have also RDM A2 getting some changes. It's Super F30, which has its accuracy increased 50%. So that's a nice buff to this one in Turine. The Mirage 1C does fire the same missile. One goes up to 50% as well. It goes up 5 points though, from 185 to 190. We have the C14 getting the same treatment. The one, the side of Spanish fastest missile, two of them, so goes up 5 points. That's a better missile. And then we have the Mirage BE actually going down to 120 points now. Back to being a dirt cheap fighter again, as it had been way back in 2022, basically. Nowadays, though, with only 80 points instead of 10. And yeah, going to be interesting to see how this one will be used now that it is really spammable. Also in 2 divisions that really needed to be. Second and Rhine, but 50 might get something out of this. This is interesting. Yeah, I believe that is it for the most part. We talked about the divisions that got the counter battery. Oh yeah, one thing in the logistic tab is that all of the logistic vehicles now can come at a specific veterancy. The availability has not changed, so you do not get baited into changing veterancy there anymore by accident. Didn't do anything, so that's a nice quality of life change. Nothing impactful there. Yeah, the changes. One change to HDR is that the pipes now can come in a Vessex helicopter transport as well if you want. That's about it here on the NATO side of things. That brings us over to the Pact side. And for the Pact side of things, we start in the logistics tab as well, where we also enter the transports, where we also have stuff like the job going up health points 8, was at 4 before. A couple of others hit points as well. Same. Yeah, a lot of basically house clean. The Marsh sparks going down to 8 from 10. And we have other here for these, but like just across the board, those kind of things. When it comes around, like most trucks are now 8 or 6. A good couple of them were before. Most of them are at category. Yeah, that gets us next category. Start in the infantry tab, but we start with transport. Start with the Ural Metla PR that also fires the S8 rockets and the 5M rockets. Their reload time has been reduced to 20 seconds, so BTR 78 rockets here, 20 seconds reload time as well. S51 here, 20 seconds reload time as well. The rocket launching ones in 56, a bit more interesting now. We just see how that plays out. Then obviously also here in the infantry tab, the recoilless rifles all now at 3 hit points across the board. That before, will be interesting to see how that plays out. We have the smaller Commandossi team now at 50 points instead of 5 points. So with the smoke, that's a nice buff for the infantry tab in Foxy Mag and 15 one as well. Pretty strong for 50 points, I would argue. He's now play a decent role. Another infantry unit got buffed. The Dejaniki RPG 22 is now 85 to 8 points. 56 might catch us back into business here. These kind of changes. Getting a decent bit cheaper here as well. Especially as they have shock as well. Talked about, got buffed. So another shock unit that got buffed is the Scupa V. Now RPK 74 as well. For a unit that wants to push around with shock is better than the PKMs, which units that can still fire. So basically buffy as well. 76 does deserve it though, so some sense. Then we have the Dejan Saperi going up the base availability of 10 instead of 6 as well. You have 5-man squad. 6 was really low, 10 is pretty high. I don't still believe you still don't use this because I have other units. But yeah, Dejan Saperi there. Coming around. I believe they can come in the rocket transport. So yeah, so that is the interesting part here. That's the one in the rocket transport. You only had 6 of them before. Now you have 10, so you can get a lot more. Also buffed BTRs, so yeah, maybe you bring them around instead. So is for sure something. And we also have one leader that got is in availability, and that's the ready Saperji one. That one is now rebase availability as well. A little buff here. Then we move on to the artillery tab. Got the 1937 2mm howitzer. Decreased in price from 110 to 15 to 105 points. Buff to 15th. Then we have also the 40 cluster. Cluster here. That one also does deal more suppression. It does deal 420 instead of 400. I'm not quite sure if that really makes a difference to anything. Then we have the drum. We have a salvo length now of 7 instead of a salvo length of 4. So, not sure if that makes it better or worse. Felt like 4 usually did the job, but yeah, you now have a salvo length of 7. Both the ground based, the vehicle based, and the routine ground. Tank tabs for Act. Start with the Rapira. Now get 50% instead of 45% base accuracy for the gun. So same obviously for the German one. 50% base accuracy there. That is nice. And then we have the ready PT-76, but only the leader one. Coming around with the BD variant that brings a heavy MG on the top. You don't get that heavy MG on the normal variant. Price increased by 5 points for that. And yeah, as you don't get that many of these, it does not play that much of a role. But a nice little history thing to have PT-76 with a heavy MG. Maybe we'll see more of them eventually somewhere. But yeah, that's basically it. And then we have the T10 being renamed into the reservist, and as it is, the reservist tank. Yeah, reservist MK. Now, recon temp, we have a similar thing with the T4 Rachvetka, now being called Rachvetka T64 B1 instead of B1 Rachvetka. So yeah, just a small little namey thing. E-Man also now has its rocket reload time reduced to 20 seconds for the 80mm round rockets, so reload time a bit improved there. We have the Fook going down 5 points as a unarmored recon unit, and the same goes for the OT-65. Basically, yeah, same, but Czechoslovak. So this little recon unit without any fire capabilities, now 20 points. Might still be worth it for the optics, so interesting little change there. Helicopter tab, we have one small change. The empty roof, which is this one over here, which got its Gao canisters. Oh no, it's actually this one here. Yeah, this one has its reload time decreased to 4 seconds. That it can fire its salvos quicker with those rocket pods, but it's still not a great helicopter here. Good goof one. Another buff to 56 though. Also to KDA. Not the reload costs and so on, like, it's insane. So I don't believe you're gonna use that much, but can. Then last thing, the MiG-21 cluster, the BIS cluster on the East German side of things, I believe. And it went down to 230 points. Yeah, with the smaller bombs is now only at 230 points, but this one with the split having only 60-second reload time and this one having 120, meaning that this is way better than 10-point difference. So the second guards one is still the superior one, which is also the one that you get with the Czechoslovaks, I believe. But there it's not called the BIS, but rather just the NF. Yeah. So the 241. At least now there's a cost difference, but this one is the weaker one. You get in 20th and in 6 guards, though 6 guards doesn't really need a buff, so yeah, it's fine. So not all that many changes here, except but we have the big artillery change, and a good couple of other like shock trade change and so on. So it makes sense that individual unit changes here this time around I don't go overboard. And the ones that we got are still interesting, like the Leo 1 family changes and so on. But the main thing in this patch will be the artillery change. So yeah, let me know down below what do you think of all of this, and hope to see you all in the next one. Bye bye and have a great day.